So Kathleen Kennedy has done it again. Disney Star Wars does it again. Once again, they proved that the Star Wars that we all know and love is gone and probably is gone forever. They're proving over and over again that diversity and inclusivity and all this fake wokeness takes priority over storytelling, and that that's not going to change anytime soon. The only time that's not going to be the case is if Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni is in charge of a project, and even in those cases now, I still feel like wokeness is going to take priority over storytelling, because Kathleen Kennedy is going to take more and more power away from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. But Star Wars once again has caught themselves virtue signaling on Instagram and Facebook, and notice how they don't post it on Twitter or YouTube, because they know what's going to happen if they post it on there. It's a lot easier to get ratioed on Twitter and on YouTube than it is on Instagram or Facebook. But let's check out what they actually posted, what they did virtue signal for this time. And I'm also going to show you some of the other virtue signals that they have done over the last few months, and why there's no way they actually care about these causes that they claim to support. They only care about profiting off of these causes. Even if that means making Finn and Ant on the Force Awakens poster in China, even if that means editing out the gay kiss scene in The Rise of Skywalker when they go to Singapore. Yes, they did that, and they did much worse than that as well. We're going to talk about it all, but let's get into the virtue signal from yesterday. So I tweeted out a picture of what Star Wars actually posted on Instagram, and here it is if you haven't seen it. It's a picture of those twins from the High Republic on the cover of a comic book, and the caption says, "In honor of Trans Day of Visibility, we're proud to unveil an exclusive cover highlighting Tarek and Seret, trans non-binary Jedi currently featured in Marvel's The High Republic comic. We support trans lives, and we are passionate and committed to broadening our representation in a galaxy far, far away." Yes, we know you are very committed to broadening your representation. That's all you're committed to. This obviously takes priority over the actual storytelling. They make these characters up with these days of acknowledgement in mind. They only put them in Star Wars. They only make them these sexualities, these genders, these whatever else you want to say. They only put them in Star Wars so that they can post them on social media websites on these days, so that they can virtue signal on these days, so that they can try and show everyone that they are inclusive, but more importantly, so they can profit off of all the people who are very passionate about this type of thing. And let me just say, I have nothing against trans people. I have nothing against trans people being in Star Wars, but this is probably the first time many people are hearing of Tarek and Seret, and I've seen them before, but this is the first time I've ever known anything about their actual character. And it seems to be a recurring theme that the very first thing we learn about these characters is their sexuality or their gender. It's like if you had a friend for 2 years and all of a sudden they told you that they're transgender. You're not going to cut that friend off because they're transgender. But if you meet someone for the first time, you go to shake their hand, and the very first thing they say to you is that I'm transgender, you're going to be kind of weirded out. Like, why the hell did you just tell me that? I don't care. That's what this feels like. It's like they're just shoving it down our throats over and over again. The first time we get introduced to these characters in the High Republic, we just learn their sexuality and their gender. We don't learn anything about the actual character. We don't learn anything about the actual storytelling, because that's not what Disney cares about. And don't get it twisted, they don't care about trans rights either. They don't care about Trans Day of Visibility either. They care about the money that can be made off of these days. They care about the money that can be made off of people who are passionate about these days. That's straight up manipulation. If I was passionate about these days, if I was part of these communities that they're trying to profit off of, I would be extremely offended, because they're straight up manipulating you into buying Star Wars content. And to be honest, I don't even think it's going to work. Do you really think that someone is going to buy Star Wars content who wasn't going to buy it before just because they see that characters are transgender or non-binary in the story? I don't see that happening. So they're just ruining the storytelling by not focusing on it and only focusing on representation and inclusivity, and it's not even going to make them that much more money. It's going to make them less money. It's so crazy to me how long it's taking them to see that. And I know they'll figure it out in the future sometime, just like all the other big studios will. But it's crazy how long it's actually taking them. The caption for my tweet was, "They just make this shit up as these days of acknowledgement come. There is no way they thought about all of this beforehand, and if they did, they're focusing on the wrong thing." And that's really what it feels like. It feels like they made a bunch of characters in the High Republic, and whenever a day of acknowledgement comes, like Trans Day of Visibility, they just go pick out some random characters from the High Republic and say they're transgender. Or if they had this in mind from the start, then you're just focusing on the wrong things. We don't care what the sexuality, we don't care what the gender is of these characters, so stop trying to force it down our throats. When did Star Wars become sex crazed? Let's take a look at Data Racer's tweet. If you don't follow Data Racer on Twitter, go follow Data Racer. He says Star Wars is doubling down on the woke, creating trans non-binary Jedi twins for their new comic books. And I don't want to sound extremely ignorant, but from what I understand, non-binary means you don't identify with a gender like male or female. And I don't really understand why, if you're not male or female, if you don't identify with a gender, why do you need to transition gender? Why are you transgender if you don't identify with a gender? It doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe someone can explain it in the comments. But this is a very interesting screenshot from the High Republic trailer. I'm sure most of you remember this screenshot, but it's always fun to bring it back up in videos like this one. On this board, you can see their kind of checklist for the High Republic, and you can see diversity and representation all over this board. It just reinforces the fact that they're going so hard on representation for the High Republic. And once again, I don't think representation is a bad thing in Star Wars. And I know it's tough to do organic representation inside of books and inside of comics, but you have to at least try. At least try to make it look organic a little bit. This is just forcing it down our throats every single time. And they did the same thing with Finn in the sequel trilogy. They only had Finn in there so that they could say they had a black guy as a main character. I feel so bad for John Boyega, because he's one of the most talented actors in the world. Regardless of of what you think about Finn, John Boyega has talent, and he was so excited to be in a Star Wars movie, and they just ruined his character. Back on February 13th, Star Wars tweeted out something for Black History Month, yet another virtue signal, and guess who they use in their tweets? A big picture of Finn. They only have these characters in there to use them as virtue signals. It's so obvious. The caption says, storytelling is at the heart of being human, and Black representation in all media gives us the opportunity to feel like we are part of the world we are living in. To be seen and heard more gives us a chance to feel like we are understood by those consuming our stories. There you see the big picture of Finn. Stories can show how a character can overcome struggles and conflict, and to see someone like yourself in that story is a springboard for the imagination. I would 100% agree with that caption. I think every single person in the world should have someone that looks like them to look up to, but Finn is not that character. But also, every character that you like, every character that you look up to doesn't have to look like you. When I was a kid, I looked up to characters who weren't white, but it is always a good thing to have some heroes that look like you, because there is an extra little bit of connection. So I do agree with this caption. But what I don't agree with is using Finn as a virtue signal after you barely used him to do anything in the sequel trilogy. You only had him there for the inclusivity, for the virtue signaling. You didn't actually care about his character. You didn't actually care about the storytelling. He was useless. And you marketed him as a big part of the trilogy when he was never going to be that. But I think the worst example of this is this one, and it's really never talked about. Shout out to Ryan Kinnell for reminding me about this in his video, because honestly, I totally forgot that this happened. But we have an article from Forbes, and the headline says Disney edits same-sex kiss out of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker in Singapore for the kiss at the very end of The Rise of Skywalker between two women. It was a huge deal in North America. It was the first same-sex kiss, and Star Wars and Lucasfilm were very proud of that moment, but not proud enough to leave it in when they go to Singapore. It's so obvious what these people are doing. I don't know how so many people can't see it. They don't care about any of these causes they claim to support. They care about getting money. In order to fit into a lower rating in Singapore, Disney has removed a scene from Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker in which two women kiss. Should today's studios still be re-editing films for specific countries, and in the process censor scenes like a gay kiss only to increase their box office numbers? I don't think it's a horrible thing to edit your films for certain countries, but when you edit things out like same-sex kisses, and then you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, you go on Facebook, and virtue signal for all of this inclusivity and representation stuff, it just makes you look like an idiot. It's just embarrassing, and I hope in these videos I wake more and more people up to the fact that Disney doesn't care about any of these causes, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that think that Star Wars and Disney are great people. Look how diverse they are. Look at all this representation. No, they don't care. But let me know what you guys think in the comments of these trans non-binary twins that they just added into Star Wars, and let me know what you think of the High Republic overall. Can you still enjoy the High Republic even though they're pushing all of this wokeness down your throat, or is it already ruined before it even really gets going? Let me know in the comments. If you hate Kathleen Kennedy being the president of Lucasfilm as much as I do, check out my Ruined by Kathleen Kennedy merch, linked in the description. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on Twitter or join the Discord, both of those links will be in the description as well. But thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you on the next one.